So, I was just, Steve, I don't think you've met Moto. I don't think Moto was on the call last week.
No, he wasn't.
No, I wasn't.
So, Steve is somebody that lives here in town where I am, and he and I were getting together at the Starbucks and actually planning to do something of our own, which I think we still will, but right this very minute, he's chiming in on our calls, and we're all getting used to the camera and doing this stuff live. That's actually half of the game right this minute.
Well, nice to see you, Steve.
Good to see you.
Likewise, thank you.
So, Moto, you know you're not live, right? We don't have a camera for you?
I don't?
No, it's a solid picture. I mean, it's a picture of you. It's a good picture, but it's not video. There we go.
Did it work?
Man, you're a whiz on the computer. You're really getting this stuff.
Hi, Steve.
Hi.
Hey,
Whereabouts are you?
Excuse me?
Where do you live?
I live in very north New Jersey, right next to New York.
Okay, good for you.
Well, it's too cold in winter.
No kidding. Well, come to Phoenix. It's nice here in the winter.
Yeah, I've been there, Scottsdale once in my life. Oh, how I loved it. Dry and sun and, positive environment.
Well,
we're just trying to get below 100 these days.
Yeah, we haven't quite made it, but it was warm out there again today.
Yep.
Well, but I don't complain about the other 3 seasons here in New Jersey. Spring, summer, and autumn. That's absolutely beautiful.
I don't doubt it.
Yeah.
Well, it's great to love where you live as far as your weather, but yeah, winter, it's just like Michael. I don't know how Michael and Keita do the wintertime, because they deal with sometimes 40 below up there where they are. They talk about being out jogging or exercising in that kind of weather.
Well, even the people who live in Alaska, I don't know how they can survive,
Lots of alcohol.
Yeah.
Hey, Michael.
Hey, how's it?
Oh, Michael.
Hey.
How are you?
Oh, I'm pretty good.
Good
You?
to see you. Oh, for a while.
You know what I notice on these live calls? The quality is better than when we're just doing Google Hangouts. When they're actually live, we got better quality.
Right.
So I don't know if we're going to have Keita today. She had a plumbing problem above her, and her place got wet from somebody else's plumbing.
Mm-hmm.
So they have a real problem. So she said maybe she could get to the library and plug in. I was going to remark that before we started, Moto was remarking about how very valuable, this thing started out with Keita and I met in California, and Moto and Keita had an email. When I say relationship, they were kind of a mentor kind of a thing. And he started asking some wild questions, or some different kind of questions, and Keita plugged me in. And we started with a bunch of email. Then we went through a couple of different formats of telephone calls and video, and I think we've been through 5 or 6 phases now. So if nothing else, the last call was very enlivening. I think it's a lot of fun. So Moto thinks we're doing wonderful. I think we're doing wonderful, and we've got Steve now, and Michael certainly brings his brand of wisdom.
Well, I really appreciate everybody tolerating my English. It's not an easy thing for me. But how I expressed of my thoughts to Keita was that from all what I learned, not really in college or in academic ways, but my own, I think that everything happens in resonance. Since everything is energy, Everything is a wave. Everything is the vibration. So things happen when it resonates. That's a simple thought in a way. And then Kira says, yeah, I think I know the right person to introduce you. That's how it happened.
Ah,
Yeah.
so here we
So
are.
you are Mr. Resonance.
There we go. I was called Mr. Wizard when I was a little kid. That's from taking toasters apart or something like that.
But don't you think that everything happens in resonance? When we resonate to something, that energy multiplies.
Well, that's what law of attraction says, right?
Like waves in a pond.
Right. Right. So good things take time, but gradually involving more and more people and resonate, it's a wonderful thing. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
So it's interesting. Things take time. I suspect they take a lot less time when we don't have resistance, because resistance is an active part
Right.
of all of us, and that's kind of what part of the conversation's been, because resistance spins us off when otherwise there's an order that would enhance the things we're trying to achieve. And so
Absolutely right. But I think most of the human beings spend so much time to find what resistance is, and if luckily any person who can find what the resistance is, then the person can start dealing with how to deal with it, and then eventually may be able to deal with it. So things take time, I guess.
So that's why we allow. We learn how to allow, and things move. They won't, even in allowing, things won't happen on our time. And actually, if we would give up time, things happen just fine. But certainly, the resistance is a.
Yeah. So even though I'm not a Christian, but what I have been hearing and looking at all these people who are into Jesus Christ, what he's saying is that, look, this is the way you can resolve the resistance you're having. I think that's what he's saying. That's my, really could be a premature understanding, but that's how I feel.
Yeah, it's about love. It's about allowing, and all of that's the opposite of resistance.
Mm-hmm.
Can't get in the kingdom by resistance.
I'm currently reading Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, and it really resonates with me what he talks about in regards to man's ultimate quest is to find his meaning. And once we connect to our meaning, once we follow that path, which is the path to the divine, which is also our soul's purpose, then you don't have to worry about anything else. You don't have to worry about allowing or resisting, and everything starts falling into place. And I really believe that the only way to really incorporate your soul into your being is to follow your soul's purpose and to live your soul's purpose. Otherwise, your soul cannot integrate into your being, and that is the reason for all of the conflict that we have within us, because our soul not becoming part of us creates holes within us, creates space for conflict and other kinds of energies to embody our being. But when our soul fully integrates with our being, there's no place for anything else than your purpose. And then you make everything that you do in your life based on that purpose. And he's the one that created the logotherapy, if anyone is familiar with that.
Created what kind of therapy?
It's called logotherapy, which is a kind of a branch off from psychology, and it is instead of the common sort of like psychoanalysis.
How do you spell it?
Logo, Logo therapy.
Yeah.
And his the whole idea is he's a World War II Jewish Nazi camp survivor.
Mm.
So he saw a lot of stuff happening during those times, a lot of people dying, and he believes that maintaining a sense of purpose is what kept him alive all that time. And logotherapy was something that he was developing before being sent off to those camps.
Mm.
And so he created that afterwards. And the premise of logotherapy is to help people to connect with their soul's purpose.
Mm.
And he believes that is the ultimate quest for humanity. Once you connect to your soul's purpose and you endeavor to follow it, then really nothing else matters in your life. You can overcome pretty much everything. There's no more resisting. There's no more asking yourself all kinds of questions. And I really believe that is pretty much my quest, is to connect to my soul's purpose. And I believe when you manage that, then you're set, really.
I would suggest that it's less a connection than it is a becoming.
Right, exactly.
It's not like it's something that's separate. It's something that's there. It's just we have to open the doors to it, in a sense. And that raises a question to me. It came up earlier. What is the difference in people's minds between allowing and surrender, or is there a difference?
That's a good one.
Well,
Because
surrender. Sometimes people have negative views of surrendering, as in giving up. But surrendering, I think surrendering can be taken both ways. It can be a form of giving up, but also it can be a form of allowing. I guess it depends on the situation, and it depends on your intent, the reason why you are surrendering, and what you are holding within yourself while you are surrendering.
that to which you are surrendering.
Surrendering could be like submitting. I mean, it's not meant to be used that way, but that could be a variation on surrenders. I mean, ultimately, that's what we want to do. Ultimately, is surrender. I mean, whether you call it allowing or surrendering, there's something bigger, and if we can surrender to something bigger than ourselves, or that proper scenario, then whatever we call it becomes incidental.
Then, in a sense, what we're doing is surrendering to our soul's purpose.
I believe that is the ultimate quest, is to leave your ego aside, leave your own beliefs of who you need to become, and your own identity, and saying, you know what, I am not in control of my life. There is something bigger out there for me, and that is the purpose of my soul. And if you allow or you surrender yourself to your soul's purpose, then your soul can embody you and guide your life. You basically need to take a back seat to your soul's purpose, to your soul. And I believe that is my quest, is to let go of who I am, the death of my character, the death of my ego, and saying, you know what, I am not the master of my domain. I am not the one who should decide what I need to do with my life. It is up to my soul to direct me, and I should let it take control.
And I would submit to you that your soul is you, and that it's the small e that is surrendering to the large ego. The soul is an ego too, in the sense that it is a self-realized entity. Only it's on a grander scale, of course. So I guess what I'm trying to suggest is that you don't lose yourself in this process. You gain yourself in this process.
Right. You surrender to your soul because it knows, even though it is part of you in a way, but also it is sort of like a separate representation of who you are on another dimension.
It's only separate if you continue to hold it as separate.
If you don't allow it, if you don't allow it within, if you don't embody your full self, then it is separate. If you allow your whole being to become one, then you understand that you are resisting something that is you. And as long as you resist something that is you, a different part of you, then it becomes separate. But it's in order to really understand that your whole being is not within one dimension, and we need to get away from our ego thinking that we are it, our physical self. And our physical self is just a lower representation of our higher self, but we treat it as the only thing that we are. And that is the difficult part, is to separate ourselves from that, our false reality of who we are.
It's the closed thinking that's the person.
Exactly. And that is basically what's wrong with humanity, is that this physical representation is just that, is sort of like in a sense, it's sort of like an illusion, but it has a purpose. And the purpose is to heal certain things, I believe, that within our other self, our higher self, it cannot heal certain things within its dimension. And the purpose of having a physical body in this dimension is to heal the parts that it cannot heal within its dimension. And I believe that is the purpose of humanity. We are sort of, I wouldn't say a tool, but a manifestation to represent a part of ourselves that cannot be directly here.
Well, I would say that it's a return. It's a return from a state of insanity to sanity.
To acknowledging our godliness. And that is the insanity, is not acknowledging that.
Not being aware of it.
Or not being connected to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Forgetting that we are that. I believe that all the evil in this world is us denying our godliness. And that is why some people call it the adversary, some people call it the Dark Lord, evil. And I believe evil is nothing more than an illusion, and it is nothing more than the things that we do not accept of ourselves. And we actually create this evil out of that misconception.
So you have order or you have distortion, and order is when we're plugged into ourselves at our highest level, and anything less than that is distortion, or call it resistance, or call it ego, or call it whatever you want. Doesn't matter.
Very interesting.
So the question becomes then, what is our soul's purpose? And the question then becomes, is our soul's purposes different, or is it ultimately all the same if you really get right down to it?
Well, my beliefs on that is the universe the universe came into being sort of like I'll give a representation of a big crystal that was fractured. And each one of our souls represent a fracture in that crystal. So ultimately, it is to recreate this crystal as a whole. But until then, we each have an individual piece of this crystal to represent and to heal. So I do believe that we each have an individual part to play, but that individual part is also part of a greater whole.
How about the idea that God, or whatever you want to call it, simply extends itself? Clearly it does it through the mineral kingdom, the plant kingdom, and the animal kingdom. Everything in nature, to my way of thinking, is nothing more than a means by which innate intelligence, or God, or whatever you want to call it, expresses itself And let's say in the sophistication of our nervous system or in the complexity of our being, that as we turn ourselves over or find this match that is for our higher, our sole purpose, that what we really are is a sophisticated means by which innate intelligence expresses through us, and the universe and God extends.
Mm-hmm.
We are the means through which God becomes conscious.
Right.
And we are the means through which God perfects itself.
And extends itself, yeah. In other words, we have a fancy nervous system, we have opposable thumbs and laptops and SUVs, and as we come into our being and learn how to me, what is unconditional love? No resistance to your maker. That's my definition for unconditional love, which means innate intelligence or your maker expresses through you with no dimension, with no distortion, and so suddenly this opposable thumb becomes available as a means of God expressing and extending. And I say our ultimate soul's purpose is to become that, for which I say we get the ride of our lives because we are awareness. But so I throw that out as an idea.
Go ahead, Moto.
It sounds like to me it's going far deeper than I was expecting it. Wow, that's overwhelming to me.
Well, I believe that the ultimate ending, if we shall say ending in regards to humans on the physical plane, is to embody God, is to manifest God through our being into this reality. And that is done through following our purpose, and that is done through embodying the Holy Spirit, which is our, and we connect to the Holy Spirit through our soul. And when we do that, we can basically access the divine through that process. The only way to gain access to the divine is to embody our soul, and the only way to embody our soul is to become our meaning, our purpose, whatever the purpose of our soul is. And I believe that is how Jesus became Christ, by fully embodying his soul. He became Christ, and he became the Son of God in a sense. He became God in a way, because by reuniting with his soul, he reunited with the Holy Spirit, and that basically opens up the channel to God, and so that God can manifest through your being.
I would agree with all of that, but I would say he went beyond the Holy Spirit.
Who did?
Jesus.
Well, my world says that the Holy Spirit is the intermediary as part of this process of becoming one.
It is an intermediary, but it's a step to Christ consciousness.
Right, right.
Yeah, I believe that it's humans, our soul, the Holy Spirit, and then God. If you can go through that process of becoming your purpose, you basically open yourself up to fully embodying your soul, which opens the door to the Holy Spirit, which opens the door to God. And then you allow God to manifest himself in this world, and then he can actually achieve the work that he needs to achieve within this world. And I believe that is the ultimate quest for humans. It is to go through this process so that God can come into this world and do the work that he intends to. Because God is so far removed from this world that he cannot himself come into this world to do his work. It's not possible for him. He's way beyond that. And the only way that he can manifest himself into this world is to have us go through this process to open the door for him. And that is programmed into our being. And will always be restless with our lives, we will always feel a lack of purpose as long as we do not fulfill um, that which God has entrusted in us. God gave us life for a purpose. So He says, I'll give you life, but you have to go through this process so that I can come here and do a certain amount of work that needs to be done through us.
The only thing different I see in all that is I say God's already here because it's absolutely intact in the mineral kingdom, plant kingdom, and the non-domesticated animal kingdom. God is absolutely intact, but there's limitations in those consciousnesses or those mechanisms for expression. We are a fancier mechanism for expression, but I would say that God's entirely here on this planet. And we are at odds with that, so it doesn't express through us. Therefore, we don't have, quote-unquote, heaven on earth, or the kingdom is not here, because we're actually a big impediment. But we learn. Because I think ascension is available as we come to understand our part in this.
When I say that God is removed from this existence, I don't mean that He is absent. I mean that His influence is limited. I believe that God is the source of all of life. He is at the core of the atom. He's at the core of the proton. And I believe that God sustains life in this dimension. But in regards to manipulating, in regards to direct intervention, that is what I mean by Him being removed. I believe that He needs us for direct intervention. He needs us to embody the Holy Spirit, which opens the door for Him for direct intervention.
Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. I need to excuse myself.
Okay.
All right, Steve. Thank you.
Catch you next time.
Thank you, Steve.
Good night.
Steve let me know beforehand that he had a meeting and he wasn't going to be around, so we didn't freak him out. So, Moto, did you start to say something a bit ago?
No, as I said, it's been overwhelming. It's exceeded my capability of understanding of the conversation. It's a very, I might sound very premature, but the universe itself, we know very little. And the more our science find the universe, the more we get confused. And, and I think human beings, we want to find some kind of identity in somewhere. Otherwise, we always feel very insecure. Agree? So, in some ways, I'm not trying to offend you, but my understanding is that the people who come up to the word God is to create something that we can rely on, mentally and emotionally, rather than knowing entire thing. So that's a part of the reason that I prefer not to use the word God. The universe, to me, is more, concrete and more, how to say, acceptable to me.
What?
Universe?
Oh.
But universe itself is a total mystery. We don't know. It's just, first of all, the how to say, infinity. There is no end in the universe. Can you understand that? I can't. No end. What does it mean?
I believe that it is not up to us to try to intellectually understand the universe. I don't believe that that is why we are here. We are here to bring our meaning and our purpose to our existence. And the more we try to intellectually understand the universe, the further away we pull ourselves from our purpose. and it's a never-ending struggle. The more we understand certain things, the more we understand, the more we
limit it.
yeah, exactly. The more questions. The more questions we try to answer, the more questions we create. And
that's a shortcoming of the mind right off the bat.
And basically our minds are getting all confused and conflicted throughout this process. It is because that's not what we are meant to do. And but we do not accept that. It causes us all kinds of conflict and this conflict just keeps accelerating and increasing. And scientists are the people that seem to know the least, because they have all these papers that they keep retracting every year, and every year they connect to a different truth. I was like, oh, we were wrong with this, now we understand something more. But they don't, it's as if they don't learn from history. It's been going on for hundreds of years that every time they think they understand something, it gets disproven. Then stop. At some point, stop trying to understand everything. It's like you don't understand. You don't learn from your own mistakes. That you cannot fully understand it. Stop trying. It doesn't work.
You mean you allow infinity instead of trying to understand it?
Right. Exactly. It's there. That's it. Follow your purpose. Stop trying to understand something that is not understandable. We have proven time and time and time again that it is not understandable. We have been trying to create a map of consciousness. We have been trying to create a map of love, blueprints for ego, blueprints for character, and we have failed. We have been trying for thousands of years. Millions of people have tried, and they are still trying, and they have not succeeded. Stop. Stop trying.
Yeah. That's why we try, and I think it's a positive thing. And that is what human being, not the word doom, but yes, we should. And even though we are not able to find the answer always, most of the time we find the answer momentarily. So the philosophy and science are very close. It is said that the philosopher set the goal, and the scientists start to reach to that goal. They make all kinds of efforts to prove or disprove what was established by the philosopher. And I don't know how a philosopher finds all these things.
I don't think that can be done. You can't, I mean, a simple example of philosopher and poetry, I mean, you can't say poetry's right or wrong, and you're not going to take science and match it up to this nonlinear world. Even quantum physics is still limited. It doesn't explain everything. All it does is a fancier version of observing what isn't understood. I don't think science will ever be a match for philosophy, ever. I think that's a mistake, and I'm not disagreeing with you, Moto, but I think it's a mistaken understanding in general that science will come along behind and prove philosophy, and philosophy will stay out in front. I don't think so. I think science is dying, actually. Because we're moving beyond it.
For me, I think that philosophy is closer related to spirituality in the sense that it is just allowing what is, and is just trying to sort of understanding it, not creating a blueprint out of it, not creating a recipe to replicate it. It's just saying, okay, this is how it is. I'll try to find different angles of looking at the situation so that I can connect to the truth behind it. And so I agree with Jim that philosophy is useful and science is not. I believe science inflates the illusion, and by inflating the illusion, it pulls us away from God. And the more we try to understand God, the further away from God we will get, and the further away from our purpose we will get. It is distancing ourselves from the purpose.
I understand what you say. However, if you look at the reality that we are talking like this through the very convenient gadget, this is science. This is science created all these things. Philosophy was not able to create all these hardwares and software, so to say. So there are some niche that science have to fill in, and then so that we can talk about the philosophy. That's what I think.
I believe that everything that science has created, ultimately we can do without, and that it would be a much more natural way of living if we lived in communities of people that are self-supporting, and that we can sit around the campfire and help each other out through our miseries and through our problems. That way, a 5-year-old doesn't become miserable. A 6-year-old doesn't become miserable, and they don't need all of these things to make themselves happy anymore. You can eliminate all of this, and I believe that pretty much most of the diseases can be eliminating as well. Because if we are actually fulfilling our life's purpose,
Well,
we become
yes,
immune
yes,
to most of the diseases.
yeah, most of the disease, yes, as you say. We created science or technology, whatever you call, created so much unexpected disease. At the same time, we conquer so many diseases we originally had. So there are good and bad. And if you talk about the campfire, without having recent scientific technology, you will not be able to gather with many different people from other parts of the world in one place in a campfire. So there are
So
That's
we
not
are going.
really
We are going with the assumption that it is a good thing to communicate with all of the people all around the world.
Mhm.
And today, it might be difficult to remove ourselves from that concept because we have gotten accustomed to it. But if you go back thousands of years, it might be better just remaining within your own culture and within your own people and being supportive in regards to the people that you know instead of always trying to meet different people and trying to sustain all kinds of friendships that are based on superficialities. This
I
has become a necessary evil. I think science has created a necessary evil.
True, very true. And at the same time, science created, not necessarily the necessary goodies. So we always benefit from things that we have been doing. So many people are trying, and I like to just accept it without having much of a disagreement. And at the same time, I totally agree with Michael that our very natural living, Paleolithic era or whatever it is, that is very, very natural, and it should be in a way, we are supposed to live, so that this planet will be much more peaceful. There is no atomic bomb or those kind of stupid things on this planet. So, but from current practicality, where's the right thing? I really don't know.
So let me throw out an idea. It makes me think of the ancient tribes, or in New Zealand they're called Maori Indians, or Maori.
Maori.
And what I'm not thinking of them specifically, but sitting around a campfire and living a little bit simpler existence doesn't mean that you just dumb down. There is a whole world of the cosmic that you see, we're ignoring it because of science. That's us laughing at Michael saying, science we don't need, and what science produces we don't need. And it's quite true, because our minds, our imaginations, our thoughts, right now I'm spending a lot of time with the idea that not only does the nervous system receive, it also puts out. It extends out as feelings or as sensors, and so it puts out and it receives back. And we've lost sight with much of that. And you even, I don't know, I will touch on this idea. There's a lot of natural plants that are in the ground that produce different kinds of psychedelic experiences that generate alternative realities. I don't know if you're familiar with ayahuasca, for example. Graham Hancock, who discovered a commonality of all the mythologies of ancient civilizations and kind of tracked it back to maybe something like Atlantis. But he also found cave art, all of it as much as 40,000 years old, that identified another dimension. And then when he started using ayahuasca, started accessing this dimension as well. And so my thought is while we've gone off on this linear science routine for what, 400 or 500 years, for which, by the way, the planet is crashing, by the way, an alternative would be to be a little bit more of a cerebral as a species, because I think that the exploration in that direction has far more value. I'm not talking about drugs per se. It's not my point. But there's far more to the world than just being able to see across it or bomb the other side of it or order something from the other side of the planet. And I think cerebral isn't exactly what I'm looking for, but there's a lot of ways to explore besides the way we are exploring. And like I say, we've actually reached a point of no return on this planet, and we need to find some new ways of doing things. And I think sitting around a campfire and has a place more than we know.
Just give me 1 minute.
Well, I sort of, this is something that I'm just like contemplating now, so I'm not saying that it's a firm belief, but so I'm playing a little bit the devil's advocate with science, but I believe that science has created pretty much everything that it has solved. So every disease and illness that it has come up with a solution with, it had its role in creating them. I don't believe that science will cure cancer, because science is not responsible for creating cancer. I believe that cancer comes from comes from our energy field, which is a place that science cannot access. And I believe that it is a representation of an ill energy body, cancer. How exactly does it play out in regards to is it created? That's a very difficult thing to answer. But I really don't believe that science can cure anything that it has not created itself.
It's an interesting idea. I mean, science has created a lot of problems that it hasn't solved and won't be able to solve. Now, I'll give you my sense of what you just said. I disagree that cancer isn't caused by science, because I say it is. For example, I come from the water treatment business, among many other things, and when you chlorinate water, you oxidize the bacteria, and it kills the bacteria, but it doesn't break it down completely. If you use ozone in water, it will break bacteria and organics all the way down to nothing, all the way back down to their constituent parts. But chlorine as an oxidizer leaves arms and legs of the bacteria left over, is the way I used to explain it. And those arms and legs are called trihalomethanes, and they're all carcinogenic. There's people who will tell you that the radiation from cell phones will affect your brain. There's all kinds of things with dyes and food coloring, and I mean, there's no end to the stories or the scenarios of pesticides and chemicals and hormones and fake hormones. You've heard of xenoestrogens, which are chemicals that are based on the estrogen molecule, and they've been modified. So now these fake estrogens will fit in estrogen receptor sites. I think we have a lot of cancer from science, and in the end, science has created so many problems that we can't even begin to catch up. I mean, I think our oceans and all the problems we have are all a product of science. They're not just politicians making deals and doing dumb stuff. I think there's a massive amount of bad science out there. DDT is an estrogenic compound. The DDT fits in the receptor sites of estrogen receptor sites.
My favorite.
Yeah. I agree. I was a little bit too broad and inclusive in my statement of science not creating cancer.
Well, may I say something?
Yep.
I would say science enhances creating cancer or any kinds of disease. At the same time, science enhances the helps curing those problems in many ways posed by the science. And bottom line is that all from our nature body itself. And we all have, you know, how to say, chances to have cancer. But because of intake, there's chemical stuff, some part is enhanced and start to have a cancer that we were not supposed to. But at the same time, when it comes to the cure side, chemical or those things will help curing those problems. But the bottom line is that our body itself is the one who actually cure it. But it's all, the tools in a way.
Dr. Mercola just recently said, I think it was Dr. Mercola, that chemotherapy works about 3%. That's it. 3%.
It's a suicidal therapy.
Yeah. So yeah, it's true that like these cancers, they actually show up when our immune systems are weak, and so we have a lot to say about cancer. There's no doubt about it. But I think the science thing is bonkers because it doesn't play with the whole. It's like the pharmaceutical industry. If you got a pain, they'll give you a pill for it. They give you a pharmaceutical for it. Anybody dumb enough to do that, and it wipes out so many other things.
Absolutely. What they want is that giving some kind of medicine that momentarily suppress the current symptoms, but they want the problem to stay as they are, so that they can sell more medicine. They are not looking for the real cure. Well, maybe I'm saying too much, but that's more to how to deal with the symptoms, and not necessarily to how to deal with the core of the problem.
Okay, so then I think I would more say that the root of cancer is not within the physical world. It is within our energy beings, and that is the place that science cannot access. So as long as it can only work on the physical body, and science cannot do anything about the root of the cancer, which is in the energy body. So it is we cannot truly cure it. Some people have spontaneous remissions of cancer, and there's many documented cases on spontaneous remissions, and people talk about a change of perception.
So that's true. It's quite true. Yeah.
Yep. And it's basically the relationship that person has with their energy body changes. So they themselves are capable of switching off that part that source that it is stuck in their energy field. Not the doctors, not science can do that. A person can do that themselves, but it requires a tremendous change of perception, and that triggers spontaneous remissions.
I agree. It's that's a brat molecule, the cell that that's off the how to say out of control. That's how it happens. So how to deal with it? Exactly as Michael said, that it's an energy field.
Well, 30% of healing is placebo effect in the traditional world of healing. 30% placebo.
Yes, even current, pharmaceutical, strong society, placebo effect is, I don't think it's 30%, a lot more than that.
Okay.
It's a placebo effect is a major thing. That's actually our human body's, self-curing system. So how to trigger it is a key.
Like, I believe that there are environmental influences, but ultimately I do believe that all forms of cancer originate in that energy field, and it is a perception that we have. Take, for instance, cigarettes. Why is one person susceptible to getting cancer from smoking 2 packs a day, and the other person is not? If it was the cigarette themselves alone, then either everyone would get cancer smoking the same amount of cigarettes, or no one would get cancer, one or the other. Why is one person, why are there beings that can smoke 2 packs of cigarettes a day for 40 years and not get cancer?
Yeah.
Well, Michael, first off, everybody's different. Everybody has different inherent weaknesses and strengths. And when you have a weak system in different kinds of ways, smoking would overwhelm your system much more readily than people that are just built like a tree, or built really. It's just their nature is they're really strong and they can withstand a lot more. So I don't think that it's fair that if you smoke you get cancer or you don't, and so obviously smoking doesn't cause cancer. I think there's a little bit more to it than that.
Yeah, it's not a single cause. I think, if let's say is a person drinking when they smoke, or and there are so many different factors, all intertwined. But yeah, it is true that if smoking is so bad, more people should get cancer. But it's the kind of funny statistics is that for the last how many years? 40 years in Japan, the smokers became half of it. There are still lots of smokers in Japan, but number of the total population of smoker became half of it, and the cancer became doubled it. So those are the figures. We really don't know how anybody can explain it.
Well, and don't forget, healthy people don't smoke. There's a whole mental realm of people that are attracted to smoking. It's a variation of self-medicating. There's no telling what the purpose behind why they would smoke is.
Jim, I have a question. What do you think of the difference in smoking marijuana or cigarette? I used to smoke a cigarette, but I never smoked marijuana, so I really don't know. Are there any similarity or any effects, or do you have any idea?
I have ideas. First off, marijuana, most people smoke far less than they would cigarettes. And then second off, you got the concept of cannabinoids. And cannabinoids, like hemp oil and stuff like that, cannabinoids actually kill cancer. They use cannabinoids and hemp oil on infants that have brain tumors, and cannabinoid oil, which is marijuana, comes from marijuana, not the getting high part, it's incidental, but actually it's clear. It's one of the best things there is for clearing up cancer, and especially with infants. So they're very, very, very different. Of course, don't forget, a cigarette is not tobacco.
All right.
It's got some tobacco in it, but it's got a lot of chemicals in it. And generally, you don't find that with marijuana.
I think that's hard to compare, because if the average smoker smokes 25 cigarettes a day, and if a marijuana user would start smoking 25 joints a day, then we can start comparing.
All got run over, it wouldn't matter.
Right.
So
I think that's
all be under the bus.
the main aspect of that. I think it's the quantity that people smoke, and plus the chemicals that they put in cigarettes. If they would put the same chemicals in marijuana, you'd get the same results.
I can tell you, cannabinoids is a really, really, really interesting subject. We have lots of cannabinoid receptor sites in our cells. I even think we have more cannabinoid receptor sites than any other single kind. And so you have endocannabinoids, which the body produces, and you have phytocannabinoids, which is produced by the plants, and they're absolutely interchangeable. And when you add cannabinoids to your healing regime or to your diet, if you will, and I'm not talking about smoking pot and getting high, but you add cannabinoids, what it does is it goes to the cells and causes homeostasis, or the cell will actually the word is suicide. In other words, it'll turn itself off. The cannabis causes it to reach homeostasis or quit. A lot of interesting study. In fact, Michael, if you're not too familiar, either of you guys, I was interested in doing some early farming with industrial hemp because I'm really interested in the subject, because I had a seed farmer and a farmer as clients, and I wanted to get a head start on this. And
are you legally allowed to do it in Arizona?
say it again.
Are you legally allowed to do it in Arizona?
No, but Colorado. And of course, it's coming fast everywhere, and so you want to be prepared. But I wanted to be in the growing of the industrial stuff because I wanted to have that cutting-edge access to what's going on in that world. The getting high part's different. I'm not saying good or bad, but the cannabinoids is a really, really interesting subject. In fact, I'll share this document. It's probably 5 or 6 pages. A lot of healing stories. I mean, a lot. Does it bring cases to the cells?
Sounds like a science.
It is a science. Wait till you find out. You wear your glasses with little lights in them, and then you...
Well, a lot of people profess by the use of certain drugs in regards to triggering spiritual connections and insight. There's I don't know if you're familiar with Alan Watts. He was a very popular philosopher and teacher. And
how do you spell it?
Alan.
Is that who it is?
Yeah, Alan Watts. W-A-T-T-S. He has a lot of stuff on YouTube, and I think it's very profound. He has connected with a lot of truths, and I have listened to him a lot.
He's an LSD guy, right?
LSD, right. He professes the use of LSD, and he believes that it has triggered a lot of higher spiritual insight and connections for him. And it worked. I'm not sure if he could have attained that without LSD, but when you listen to him, he can be quite profound. There's a lot of stuff that he says that is really, difficult to grasp if you're not initiated to that line of reasoning.
Well, in general, I would agree with all of that. And poor Keita, when we get back next week, this is where we're going to stop, and she's going to pick up right in the middle of our LSD remarks, and
Drugs.
We're going to test her, see how she does.
Right. Thanks.
I personally have never had the desire to try drugs in regards to triggering spiritual connections. I find that it has worked very well for me without it. But I can see how some people might be attracted to it, and how it can become sort of. I think it can become sort of a crutch in a certain way, because then you rely on that instead of trying to get there on your own. But
that's an assumption right there, that it becomes a crutch. Now, it doesn't mean it can't be. It doesn't mean that it is.
No. But it might. I think it opens the door to that possibility.
Well, so people. In other words, some people are wired. That's why this conversation is so wonderful, especially earlier on. It's all the same though. You know, you and I, the three of us, the four of us, the five of us, however many there are in this call, we're wired for this. We can talk about concepts of God and concepts of the soul and be on the friggin' same page. It's astounding, actually. And so when you have some of these mind-altering experiences, like let's say it's psilocybin, which is a mushroom, or LSD, or whatever, some people, it's not good for them, and so they don't know how. They did it with their friends, and next thing you know, they're doing it again, and they don't get it in the first place. But there's a certain kind of seeker that uses these things like a tool, and it doesn't necessarily have that characteristic that for part of the population it just isn't good for. And then they kind of get lost in it, don't know how they get in it, don't know how they get out of it. I could safely say that I smoked pot in high school. I think that's what the presidential guys are saying. Well, I smoked pot in high school. It is an interesting world that, what I like to say, there's a rigidity that we don't know we have, and it starts to melt in those kind of experiences. I've never been one to promote drug use ever, and I don't. But I can tell you, especially through my neurofeedback world, that we all carry a rigidity we simply don't understand, and it takes a different perspective to discover that, and as we discover it, then our shifts become bigger and greater. That's an opinion.
No, I do believe that it can be a tool for some people when properly used, but I do believe that the vast majority of drugs today are not used properly. But I think if some people really know themselves and they know what they want to get from a specific kind of drug, then they can use it as a tool, and they can get something beneficial out of it in the long run.
They're doing studies at Harvard and some of these other big schools right now with, I think, mostly mushrooms. I guess psilocybin mushrooms are the same thing. But anyway, they carefully document this progress, and these are regular people that are willing to try this. And 3-4 years later, they're considering that trip, if you will, to be one of the most powerful experiences they've ever had in their whole life, because it creates a shift. And I think there's more to it than you think you know. And of course, also, they're discovering psilocybin, these kinds of things are very effective for post-traumatic stress. Very, very, very. And depression, and on and on and on and on. Basically, the rigidity fades and we shift to another place. Not promoting it, but I'm just telling you what I read, and I do have interest in all this. So.
Yeah, I'm not completely closed off to it. Maybe at some point I might try it in a controlled environment while fully aware of the type of drug and what kind of experience that I want to get out of it. It's just that so far I haven't gotten to it, and at the moment and for the foreseeable future I'm not planning on it, but I'm not completely closed off to it. I can see the value of getting an altered state experience that you are not usually privy to.
And you'd be surprised that you don't go into it with what you intend. You go in and you let go, which is really the game.
Well, I think the letting go becomes not something that you choose. The drug itself will provoke that letting go part.
Right.
And I think that's the whole point, in a sense, of taking the drugs in that kind of intent, is to let go of things that you might not be able to let go of if you would not take it.
Right. Yes, so Alan Watts and Timothy Leary and some of these other philosophers, Ram Dass, highly regarded people, and anyway. So we've gone past our time. It's a really nice time to be on the call with you guys. I hope we get Keita back next week, and I think Steve will be back. I'm glad that. I think Lynn probably would have been blown away by the end of our conversation here, but so anyway, very good. We'll continue this next week. I apologize about getting to almost the last second before I get the link out, but if you're ready to go, the link will show up. You just hit it and we're there. Moto, would you please consider using your headset next time, like the earbud one? I think you're easier to hear with it, because I only pick up probably 80% of your conversation. Part of it's your accent, part of it's the microphone, I think. And I think if you had a better microphone or used one, I think it'd be easier to hear.
I certainly will.
So, anything else for anybody?
Nope. Thank you very much.
I'm good.
Hey, Michael.
Okay.
You guys have a great
Thanks, guys.
week.
See you next
We'll
week.
catch up later.
Good night, Jim.
Good night. See you guys.
Bye.